Title suggestion: Why planning for success is wrong, according to the I Ching. In the year 1703, the polymath Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, the man who co-invented calculus and laid the foundation for every computer you have ever used, made a discovery that shook his understanding of reality. He wasn't looking at a chalkboard or a telescope. He was looking at a 3,000-year-old Chinese text called the I Ching. Leibniz realized that the binary code he thought he had invented, the sequence of ones and zeros that powers the modern world, had already been perfectly mapped out by ancient sages in the 11th century BC. They didn't call it binary code. They called it the flow of the universe. Most people believe that to succeed, you must impose your will upon the world. They believe in grinding, in manifesting, and in rigid 5-year plans. But the oldest book in the world says that this is exactly how you fail. The I Ching suggests that the most powerful decision you will ever make is not what to do, but recognizing which season of change you are currently standing in. If you are planting seeds in the middle of winter because your plan says so, you aren't being disciplined. You are being a fool. The most successful leaders in history, from the emperors of the Zhou dynasty to the founders of Silicon Valley, didn't just work harder. They learned to read the invisible patterns of the great change. Today, I am going to show you how to stop fighting the current and start using the code of the universe to navigate the chaos of your own life. To understand the weight of this wisdom, we must go back to a time of absolute terror. Imagine the year 1050 BC. The Shang dynasty is collapsing into decadence and cruelty. King Wan, a man of immense virtue and wisdom, has been thrown into a dungeon by the tyrant King Zhou of Shang. He sits in a cell for 7 years, waiting for the executioner's blade. Every day is a test of his sanity. Every shadow on the wall is a potential end. But King Wan did not spend those 7 years in despair. He spent them looking at the cracks in the wall. He spent them observing the way the light shifted. He took the ancient 8 trigrams, the basic symbols of nature, and doubled them, creating 64 hexagrams. He wrote a commentary for each one. This was not a book of fortune-telling. This was a map of human psychology and situational dynamics, written by a man who was literally using it to survive a death sentence. Did you know that Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, refused to write the foreword to the I Ching's English translation until he had consulted the book himself to see if it wanted him to? He was obsessed with what he called synchronicity, the idea that there are no coincidences, only patterns we are too distracted to see. We live in an age of data. We have algorithms that predict what we want to buy, who we want to date, and where we want to travel. And yet, we are more anxious and uncertain than ever. Why? Because we have forgotten the context bridge. We look at the what and the how, but we never look at the when. Think of the company Nokia. In the early 2000s, they owned the world. They had the best engineers, the most money, and the most dominant market share. On paper, their plan was perfect, but they were reading the wrong hexagram. They were acting as if it were the season of the creative, constant expansion, when the universe had already shifted into the season of standstill. Because they couldn't read the change, they were swept away. The I Ching tells us that life is not a straight line. It is a series of 64 distinct situations. Sometimes the wind is at your back. Sometimes you are trapped in a pit. Sometimes you are at the peak of the mountain. The secret to the ancient strategist is not to have a better plan, but to have better timing. Let us begin with the first pillar of the oracle's wisdom. Hexagram 1, Qian, the creative. The source text says, the creative works sublime success, furthering through perseverance. Hidden dragon, do not act. Hidden dragon, do not act. This is perhaps the most difficult sentence for a modern person to understand. We are told from birth that if we have a great idea, we must shout it from the rooftops. We must launch, hustle, and disrupt. But the I Ching warns that when a great power is in its infancy, it must remain hidden. Think of Apple in the years before the iPhone. They weren't releasing half-baked prototypes every month. They were in the hidden dragon phase. They were refining, perfecting, and waiting for the moment when the market and the technology was ready for the great change. Ask yourself this. Is your current project failing because it's a bad idea, or because you are trying to force a hidden dragon to fly before its wings are grown? The actionable principle here is simple. Power is preserved in silence. If you are in the early stages of a transition, do not seek validation from the world. Seek strength in the shadows. Now, let us look at the opposite end of the spectrum. Hexagram 63, after completion. The source text says, success in small matters. Perseverance furthers. At the beginning, good fortune. At the end, disorder. This is the most dangerous moment of your life. Not when you are failing, but when you have just succeeded. The I Ching teaches us that the moment a cycle reaches its perfect conclusion, the seeds of the next collapse are already germinating. Decipher this in plain language. Success breeds arrogance. Arrogance breeds blindness. Blindness breeds ruin. When you have finally arrived, when the project is done, the promotion is secured, or the bank account is full, you will naturally want to relax. You will want to believe that the order you have created is permanent. But the oracle says, in the midst of order, disorder begins. Look at the history of the Roman Empire. At its absolute peak, under the 5 good emperors, the administrative bloat and moral decay that would eventually destroy it were already taking root. They were living in Hexagram 63. They thought they had completed history. Here is a statistic that should haunt every business owner. 88% of the companies that were on the Fortune 500 list in 1955 are gone. They didn't just disappear. They were replaced by those who understood that completion is a myth. The actionable principle is this. The moment you win is the moment you must begin preparing for the next war. Never let the good fortune of the beginning blind you to the disorder of the end. We move now to the most practical of all the teachings. Hexagram 29, Kansas. The abysmal. Water. The source text says, water flows on uninterruptedly and reaches its goal. It fills up every hollow before it flows on. The heart that is true penetrates the meaning of the situation. Imagine you are facing a crisis. A competitor has sued you. Your partner has left you. Your health is failing. Most people react to the abysmal by fighting it. They thrash about in the water, trying to climb out, and in doing so, they drown. The sage monk knows a different way. He knows the way of water. Water does not argue with the rock in its path. It does not try to push the rock out of the way. It simply fills the hollows. It waits. It accumulates. And when it has reached the necessary level, it simply flows over or around. Think of the company Johnson & Johnson during the Tylenol crisis of 1982. Someone had tampered with their product, leading to several deaths. It was a classic abysmal situation. Most corporations at the time would have fought, denied, or hidden. Instead, Johnson & Johnson acted like water. They filled the hollow. They were completely transparent. They recalled every single bottle at a cost of $100 million. They didn't fight the crisis. They flowed with the truth of it. And as a result, they emerged stronger than ever. The actionable principle. Do not fight the obstacle. Fill the space around it until the obstacle no longer matters. Finally, we must discuss the most profound shift in the I Ching. The transition from Hexagram 12, standstill, to Hexagram 11, peace. The source text for standstill says, evil people do not further the perseverance of the superior man. The great departs, the small approaches. Have you ever felt like you are doing everything right, but nothing is moving? Like the world is suddenly populated by small people who don't understand your vision? This is the standstill. The I Ching says that in this phase, you should not try to fix the world. You should withdraw. If you try to argue with a fool, you only create 2 fools. If you try to build a bridge during a standstill, the current will just wash it away. But look at the text for peace. The small departs, the great approaches. Good fortune, success. What changed? In the I Ching, peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the moment when the internal and the external are in alignment. It is when the heaven, the idea, is below the earth, the reality. It means your ideas are grounded in the actual world, not floating in the clouds. The actionable principle: when the world is at a standstill, work on your internal architecture. When the world aligns, move with everything you have. We have walked through the theory. We have looked at the history. But the I Ching is a book of action. It is a strategist's playbook. If you want to use the wisdom of the oracle to change your life this week, you cannot just know these things. You must do them. Here are the 3 specific things you are going to do in the next 7 days. First, the hexagram audit. Tonight, I want you to take the 3 most important areas of your life: your career, your primary relationship, and your personal health. For each one, ask yourself, which season am I in? Are you in the hidden dragon phase of a new business, but acting like a flying dragon by spending money you don't have? Are you in a standstill in your relationship, trying to force a conversation that the other person isn't ready for? Are you in the after-completion phase of your fitness, getting lazy because you hit your goal weight 3 months ago? Label the phase. Be brutally honest. If you are in a standstill, stop pushing. If you are a hidden dragon, stop talking. The moment you name the season, the anxiety of not knowing what to do will vanish. You will realize that you don't need a new plan. You need to align with the current one. Think of a time you tried to force a door open, only to realize it was a pull door. That is what you are doing every time you misread your season. Second, the water response. This week, someone or something is going to frustrate you. A client will miss a deadline. A car will cut you off in traffic. A piece of software will crash. Your natural instinct will be to fire back, to meet force with force. I want you to use the Kin strategy. Instead of reacting, I want you to fill the hollow. If someone is angry, don't be angry back. Ask a question that requires them to explain their anger. If a project is blocked, don't try to bash through the blockage. Look for the side path that you were too annoyed to see before. Practice non-resistance. Not because you are weak, but because you are water. Water is the softest thing in the world, yet it can wear down the hardest granite. This week, find one conflict where you choose to flow instead of fight. Watch how quickly the other person's energy dissipates when they have nothing to push against. Third, the post-success audit. Find the one area where you are currently winning. Maybe your social media is growing. Maybe your team at work is hitting its numbers. Maybe your garden is finally blooming. Instead of celebrating, I want you to look for this small disorder. What is the one tiny habit you've started to let slide because you're feeling confident? Are you checking your emails less carefully? Are you being slightly less polite to your subordinates? Are you skipping the warm-up before your workout? The I Ching says that the end begins with these small things. Fix the fraying thread before the whole garment unravels. This week, take one win and reinforce its foundation. The binary code that Leibniz found in the I Ching is more than just a mathematical curiosity. It is a reminder that the universe is built on a simple, beautiful logic. Change is the only constant. The 1 becomes the 0, and the 0 becomes the 1. The light fades into the dark, and the dark eventually gives birth to the light. If you feel like you are losing right now, remember that you are simply in a hexagram that hasn't finished turning yet. If you feel like you are winning, remember that the wheel never stops spinning. 3,000 years ago, a man in a prison cell figured out the secret to navigating the chaos of existence. He didn't have a computer. He didn't have a productivity hack. He just had the courage to look at the world as it actually was, rather than how he wanted it to be. The world does not care about your 5-year plan. It cares about your rhythm. Learn the code, read the change, and you will never be lost again. If you wish to understand the deeper architecture of the strategist's mind, You will find the link to our Ancient Strategist playbook below. It contains the 64 patterns of the Oracle decoded for the modern world. In our next episode, we will explore the art of war from a perspective you have never heard before. Why the greatest victories are the ones where not a single shot is fired. Don't miss the next turn of the wheel. The mountain does not seek the clouds. The clouds simply arrive when the mountain is high enough. Be the mountain.